Hello, welcome to High Key Growth, the guide for early stage founders, solopreneurs, and marketers who are looking for rapid growth while running lean. I'm your host, Gina Gregorick, and I am so excited to welcome today Olivia Suchko, who is the founder and CEO at Olive, also the co-director of marketing and communications at Get With It with me, and my really good friend, Olivia. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining me today. I am so excited to talk a little bit more about Olive and what you're up to over in your space. If you'd like to, for my guests who maybe don't know much about you, can you give just like a little bit of a quick intro into you and what you're up to today?
Yeah, absolutely. So, almost a decade ago, I recognized that clothing doesn't fit, like most women. And so today, I finally was able to develop a garment production system that gives you perfect fit without the hassle. So, a quick, less than 5 minute body scan gives you the opportunity to shop our collections without ever choosing a size, and it just comes in and it fits you perfectly, but it doesn't cost you an arm and a leg. And so yeah, that's kind of the high level.
So cool. That's literally the coolest thing ever. I can't wait to try it out here, hopefully soon. And so when you talk about discovering this as a problem, I think that you have a really interesting product because it's a problem that everybody, at least women, it resonates with all of us and we recognize. But at what point was it like light bulb moment? I can build a company around this or do something to help solve this problem.
Honestly, I don't know if there was like a full light bulb moment, but like when I started having the problem myself with fit in college, I was also studying fashion around the world. And I had really great opportunities that kind of showed me some of the BS that we deal with in the fashion industry, but also some really incredible technologies that were being built for the industry, but not being utilized.
Mhm.
And so all of these puzzle pieces were just like so clear to me, like there has to be something here. And so I jumped in kind of head first out of college because I'm like, I have to do something. Like I have to try at least. And yeah, I very much underestimated how big the problem was. And so there was never a clear like light bulb moment at that phase. But after many years of life and trying to figure it out, last year I was welcomed into a fellowship with CMU and Innovate PGH. And that was when I really had the light bulb moment over the solution. Like, oh, this is how it can work. I see
Mhm.
exactly how I can connect all of these puzzle pieces and make it really scalable.
Yeah. And so before you even built the product, because I think when we're talking about Olive, it's also unique in that this isn't just software, there's actual hardware involved and proprietary technology. This isn't, a simple like pull on some coders and get something built in the back end, small investment. So before you even built the product, how were you validating that there was a big enough demand for the solution? How are you validating that it was worth putting in the time and effort to build something like this?
I mean, honestly, ask any woman, and it's a very clear problem. And so, like, when I first did recognize that problem, I was also competing in pageantry. And so I was competing against hundreds of other women. And every time I brought it up, it was a huge conversation. And
Hmm.
so that was my first tell, like, okay, this problem is clearly resonating. Like, it's resonating well enough to have this entire competition talking about it at lunch one of the
Hmm.
days. And so the validation, once I really jumped in, it kind of looked different in each phase, but in the most recent phase, because I launched the beta in November, and that was really the experience of getting her in the 3D scanning booth, and when she comes out, really testing how she felt, where her head was at. Like, what did you think about this consumer experience? And imagine the fact that you get a perfect fit pair of pants out of this.
Hmm.
What would you say? And kind of just asking really specific questions. Um, without giving them the answers. And there were so many women that just immediately were like, oh my God, I would do this again in a heartbeat. Like,
Yeah.
you tell me in 5 minutes, I get my body scan and then I get something perfectly fit and I don't have to go through all of that struggle, you know? And so it became very clear and I documented everything. And so now I have like upwards of almost 1,000 women, like just documented through asking questions, having interviews, like recording their experience after they scan. and just literally talking. I think people don't think about communication well enough,
Hmm.
but like figure out how do you propose these questions in a way that's going to give me honest feedback, not proposing it in a way that you're going to get the answer you want, you
Right,
know?
right, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, congratulations on your launch. I've obviously been checking you out on all the socials, and I've seen that you've hosted some really successful launch events to have these conversations that you're talking about. So,
Hmm.
when we're talking about considering events to bring your product to market, what do you think made those work so well for you, and what advice do you have for maybe other founders who want to leverage like an event strategy?
Yeah, so for me personally, I mean the scanner is actually quite small. It's just an iPad on a structured scan or stand
Mm-hmm.
and a manager iPad kind of on the side. Everything else around that is branding, it's marketing, it's shopping. I really created it because nobody wants to go into a black box with some wires to have their body scanned, especially if you're shopping. You really have to have that experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything else around the scanner is my doing. But I realized like it would be very hard for me to find a big enough footprint to have this entire setup permanently, at least in this phase. I mean, the goal is to have that permanent, but we're lean right now. We're scrappy.
Right.
And so I just saw the opportunity of like, let's pop up because there's still a lot to learn here too. And even in the beta launch event, there was a little over 100 people that came, but I was only able to get like maybe a third of that, the guests in the
Hmm.
scanning booth because it was full the whole time.
Oh,
And
wow.
so with that recognition, I was like, okay, so this is actually really great information because now I'm recognizing that I can go into a smaller group, still get a really great test pool of
Hmm.
women that are having these problems, and I can be more intentional. And so, two out of the three pop-ups that I've done are all, it's my focus group, my introductory group that I'm really focusing my energy towards, and that's young professional women. And
Yeah.
so I'm able to really talk to them one on one and just be a little more intentional versus just kind of like throwing darts at the board and hoping they stick, you know?
Right. Right. And so just to confirm for listeners, those pop-ups are events that were already scheduled out. These are like other organizations' events with similar target markets that you could just kind of jump on and piggyback on.
Yeah, and most of the women that were hosting them kind of asked me because they're like, "This is amazing. I
I
need
love it.
this." Like, and so it was just such a natural partnership. So, excuse me. When those opportunities presented itself, it was kind of like the world was telling me like, "Okay, this is a perfect go to market to start learning a little bit more about this whole system on her side."
Right. And how validating is that? Just, I feel like you're constantly getting that positive feedback, and that's a really good sign. Like, I'm on the right path. I'm doing the right thing here.
It definitely is, but I will say it adds a layer of pressure.
Fair.
Yeah, which I do well under pressure, so it's not a problem. But it definitely is. It's so e like honestly, in even some of my applications, or when somebody tries to kind of question the goals that I have for the business,
Hmm.
I'll even say like, go and ask any woman. Like, I'll
Yeah.
walk you down Butler Street right now, and we'll ask any woman about her experiences, and it'll be proven to you how big this problem is.
Right.
And if you
Absolutely.
still don't believe me, like we can look at the $900 billion of losses in the fashion industry
Hmm.
that are from returns,
Hmm.
and 75% of those are from fit.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. I want to jump over to, so you have the product, there's definitely a fit there. You said outside of what it is, so much of this early stage is marketing and branding. And I love that because that's so true. From my experience with startups, it's like you're coming in, and in the early days especially, there's so much investment you're putting into making it seem like, okay, I'm building this plane while I'm flying it, but I swear, but it's real. Let's make us look as legitimate as possible. We launched in November, but let's maybe make it look like we've been around much longer than that and we know what we're doing. Because let's be honest, like, I think it's very common for founders too to have a little bit of this like imposter syndrome where you're
oh
like,
yeah,
do I know what I founded my own company? Like, what? So,
yeah.
when it comes to kind of building buzz around your products, I totally agree that marketing and branding aspect is so important. What are some of the key ingredients to making that successful? Like, for you, what was your process in building that brand, that aesthetic, beautiful brand that you've put together?
Thank you. Yeah. So, two elements here, two different points. Because on the actual brand side, I knew from the very beginning that I wanted it to feel like you're shopping with a friend. I knew that I'm going to be really heavy tech in an industry that has a generally very tech averse customer. And
Hmm.
so I don't want it to feel like she's shopping at a tech company. I wanted it to feel really consumer friendly. And so that's where the name came about with Olive. It actually wasn't intentional to be around my name. It really was like, okay, what kind of names are really like friendly? Like you can say, I'm going to shop with Olive, not at Olive.
Hmm.
And it kind of creates a little bit of a deeper emotional connection with our customer. And the colors and all of the other elements kind of just like started to fall into place as we started learning more about her, started really connecting that emotional lifeline
Hmm.
between who we are, what we stand for, what we're building, and who our customer is and what she's looking for. And it really just grew one step at a time based on that core vision of I want it to be friendly. I want her to feel comfortable regardless who she is, where
Hmm.
she comes from.
I love that.
The other side of it is networking, to be completely honest. Because in this phase, like I'm still early, I'm still finding the right people for my team, but I don't really have a ton of time. So unfortunately, the social media marketing and some of like those, it just falls to to the end of my priority list, and so it
Mm.
doesn't really get done a ton of times, to be completely honest, right now.
You don't have
But
time starting a business? What?
exactly. Yeah. Exactly. But those networks is where that comes into play. Like there's so many women that I've seen even just at the pop-up events that
Hmm.
I showed up for years and they knew what I was doing. And so when it finally came about, they're like, I'm in, like, tell me where to sign up.
Yep.
So your networks really do play into it just as much as it kind of supports you. I feel
Hmm.
like way too many people pass on marketing, or on networking, but it's so crucial.
100% agree. I would say even in what I do, like networking is probably my number one best and most like natural channel. I also love that you're hitting on like your brand is to feel like you're going shopping with a friend, not at a tech company. I think that that's something that tech founders make a big mistake pretty often doing is like we do AI, our product has AI in it, so we're going to be super edgy AI feeling. And I always say, like, no, look at the other brands that your buyers are going to. Like, look at the demographic and look at the other tools and systems that they're using. Even when you're developing the product, if you have like a tech interface, I say if your demographic is often, in Microsoft on their computer or Windows, take inspiration from that. Like, don't and even like for me too, I'm like, I look at brands and inspiration from like big companies that have nothing to do with each space of my clients. And that's where we get some of the most creative ideas. Like we might have a company who does home remodeling. And I'll take
Hmm.
inspiration from a fashion brand, a social campaign they did, like the ethos
Hmm.
of it or the feel of it. And because that's what resonates with our type of market. And so I love how you mentioned that because I think that's so important.
Yeah, you really have to put yourself in the mindset of who you're trying to target,
Mhm.
And because if you can't get in front of them in the right ways, it's not going to be valuable. So if
Right.
your brand doesn't align with, like, if you're a software company trying to target consumers, then you really got to understand how do you make that connection. If you're a software company going B2B, like that's different. That can is kind of up in the air, but there's still a level of branding in that. Even
Hmm.
even at the B2B level, you still have to catch the eyes and you still have to connect with whoever you're selling to.
Right, absolutely. Even yeah, even in B2B world, like the channels might be different, but
Hmm.
in terms of what it looks like and what it is, like there's absolutely a parallel. I mean, I always kind of come back to like marketing is really a lot of psychology. Like there's just so much in like human nature and like buyer behavior that impacts you and it doesn't matter what you're selling. Like you
Yeah,
have to understand your buyer. That's like rule number one.
yeah, exactly. It's so crucial.
Yeah. So you mentioned networking being huge. I do want to dive a little bit deeper into that. But before we do, I don't want to take too much of a tangent. Events and networking are big. Are there any other like really scrappy kind of marketing tactics that you've deployed that you've noticed worked well for you early on?
Hmm.
Or tried and didn't work, and you were like, not so great.
So there isn't too many specific strategies that I've focused in on because, like I said, I've been a one woman show for the majority of this,
Hmm.
and time is an entrepreneur, one of an entrepreneur's biggest enemies, and
Yeah.
so a lot of the times it's just showing up, just
Hmm.
do the darn thing, and so just make the graphic, post it,
Love it.
just show up to the event, just do whatever opportunities kind of come your way that seem like it will be beneficial.
Hmm.
um yeah, like there's no specific strategies that I can think of that did or did not work, but even my worst outputs, I still got something from it. I still got
Yeah.
a few new eyes, a few new conversations, or a few new introductions. So literally just show up, just do it.
I love that. Moral of the story, just try it all. I mean, I think
Exactly.
that's perfect and accurate. And another thing too is like as you start to try, these are all tests. Like you said, you're getting something
Exactly.
out
It's
of
a learning
this.
experience. It's not
Right.
necessarily meant to be at a marketing level where you see it on the billboard. That's a
Hmm.
very different level, a very different thinking, and very different execution strategies.
Hmm.
When you're just getting started, it's all learning. And so
Yeah.
whatever you can do to get that education is just do it.
I mean, even your product, like if you're gonna sit until your MVP is perfect in a final product, then you're never gonna get it to market and you're never gonna get
Hmm.
feedback anyway. So it's like, why
Exactly.
not just ship what you have to like a small test subject? And I think marketing
Hmm.
can reflect that same behavior.
A lot of my like peers and advisor, like this is something well known in a lot of the groups that I'm a part of, and we always say like if you are launching and it's perfect, you're
Hmm.
too late.
Yeah,
It
love
should
that.
be messy. It should be messy.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Absolutely love that so much. Um, okay, speaking of advisors, we're talking about kind of networking aspect. I want to jump back over to that.
Yeah.
So, when I think of fashion retail, of what I know from it, because I am not nearly the expert that you are, it seems very, and from our past conversations, it seems very relationship driven. So, how do you, for people who are in the fashion industry, how did you even start building these connections without already being like an insider? Because at this point, we're talking about early days, you're a student, you're getting into fashion, but you weren't like a fashion mogul launching this, right?
Hmm.
So how did you start to make those connections?
I won't lie, fashion's a little bit hard for me here in Pittsburgh. So
Really? What?
I who would have thunk it? Yeah, but I do go to New York fairly often, and so I focus around like fashion tech events. There's a few groups that I follow up there, and just like again, show up.
Mm,
Like find the events, find the people on LinkedIn, and just start following where are people going to because a lot of people are going to post about it. Um, but around here in Pittsburgh, I think it is actually kind of a competitive advantage for me because I kind of lean more on the tech side. I
mm-hmm,
just have the training around how to run a fashion business. So
mm-hmm.
I get this really unique perspective as a founder in fashion tech of building a sustainable tech business, but my mindset is always around the customer. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's been a really interesting experience kind of balancing those two mindsets. And
Yeah.
so here in Pittsburgh, though, again, like I just started finding any networking groups that I could, started
Mm-hmm.
talking to people, like telling them what I'm doing, telling them like I'm looking to network more. Here's who I'm looking to get in touch with. Like I would love to connect with somebody that can educate me in this, and
Right.
eventually it just kind of starts to tumbleweed and you start getting invited to certain things because you've been to other things. And it really is a domino effect.
Yeah. And then quick shameless plug. If you haven't heard of Get Wit at Pittsburgh, when we're talking about networking groups, Liv and I are both on the board there. And that is a perfect example and a great, like, very low stress. Like, networking events do not have to be this, like, uppity, uptight situation.
Hmm.
Like, I think that's a great example of a group where our events are just kind of fun and it's like, let's get together,
Exactly,
let's hang
yeah.
out, let's meet. And you can take a lot away from it. So there are groups like that.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of people think that you have to have all your shit together to be going to these networking events.
Hmm.
Like everybody gets some butterflies because you're going and you're basically putting yourself in a very uncomfortable position. But you
Hmm.
don't have to have everything put together. Like just going and saying like I'm learning or I'm learning about myself or like nobody has high expectations in these networking events because it is intended to support each other as a community.
Right.
And a
Hmm.
lot of people, I know a lot of people who get in their head about like actually showing up and like, well, what do you say? I'm like, just talk, just like your friends, practice in the mirror if you want to have something more structured so that you can get something out of it. Make sure you're getting the value you're looking for, but you don't have to have everything played out. Like you don't have to be like an executive on a Fortune 500 company to be able to go and have confidence in networking.
Right. Chances are most people there feel the same way you do. And you can even
Exactly.
like set some KPIs around it. Like, I'm going to talk to five new people today, even if
Yes.
it kills me. Like, I'm going to walk up and speak to five strangers and make some friends.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Like I've met a ton of people that are just exploring. They're like, "Hey, I didn't really like what I was doing, so I'm exploring new opportunities. Tell me what you do." And
Yep.
it's as simple as that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And then, really quick, you say you're kind of like just finding these networking events. Are there any tools that you're specifically using to look for them? Any websites that you think are like the honey hole for like, here's where good events can be found?
Luma has become a really great resource because they have like the calendar views and you can follow other people's calendars. And so,
Mm.
Innovate PGH, Charles Mansfield, I'm plugging him. He has a really great calendar for Pittsburgh Tech. And so you can follow whatever events like they're kind of focusing on and what they think is high value. And then other than that, like Google,
Hmm.
Pittsburgh newsletters. Newsletters are really big for just information around the city. And there's a few different ones that I like, but yeah, just
Yeah.
general research. Just trying to find it, and it kind of finds me.
Yeah, yeah, love that. And so, can you maybe anecdotally give a time where maybe you had a networking strategy or a networking kind of play that actually created a real opportunity for you? Like, do you have a real world example for listeners?
Yeah, the first time that I went to a major networking event and I felt more ready to start talking about what I was doing. Because I would say like, oh, I work in fashion, or oh, like I'm exploring entrepreneurship. Like I was really shy about it at first because I didn't know how to talk about it, especially because in the early days of Olive, I wasn't exactly clear what the solution looked like.
Hmm.
So I would just say like I'm fixing fit. And it would open up questions, but it was never enough to kind of get it rolling.
Hmm.
And I never really plugged Olive at like I'm the founder of Olive. I never was able to say it confidently.
Yeah.
And so there was one networking event, and I don't know if it was like Pittsburgh Robotics Network or what, but I made sure like I practiced in my car for a good 20 minutes before I actually went into the networking event.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is what I'm going to say. I'm saying it with confidence, and I'm not being afraid to say I'm really early stage, but this is what I'm working on. And this is the name of my company. I'm the founder, and here's what I need. And I ended up coming out of that event with so many incredible networks
It's
and
awesome.
just pointing in different directions. And honestly, like a lot of my advisors and mentors are like maybe fifth or sixth connections from somebody else. And
Hmm.
like I said, it's networks are all domino effects. And so that networking event, I can almost guarantee led to at least one of my advisors.
That's awesome. That's amazing. And so you mentioned practicing in your car. You mentioned just doing it and just owning it and say, I mean, even if you are a founder of a flop, you're still a founder. So don't be afraid to just
Exactly.
like
Yes.
admit
Failures are not a
it.
bad thing. Failures are not a bad thing.
Exactly, right. And so, is there any other kind of last minute advice? It's like you're heading to that networking event, you're feeling intimidated. Is there anything else that you would suggest for listeners to do?
Just breathe. Just breathe. And personally, I like to find the women in the group first because they're always way nicer.
Yeah. Agreed. That's fair.
They're easier to talk to. I can just go up, I compliment their outfit or something that I like about them, which is easy to find because women are gorgeous. And then it just is a casual conversation. And it's this easy starting point, at least.
Yeah, we love a girl's girl.
Oh, yeah.
So, in our chat, you've mentioned that you are going to someday raise some funds. What steps are you thinking about or taking to get to that point? What steps do you need to take as you're kind of preparing your product, mentally, everything to start that step?
So this is redundant, but again, networks. Literally, like especially with fundraising, you get nowhere without networks. And I'm really proud to say that my first investor is Julie Bornstein, who is just an incredible powerhouse of a woman in fashion tech. She was with Rent the Runway, Nordstrom, Sephora, so many incredible entities that she's made a huge shift in. And I mean, that connection that was from another network from another program that was here in Pittsburgh, and somehow it led to her. And so like truly fundraising is so odd. It's such a weird experience, to be completely honest, but I just went for it. And so yeah, she's my first investor, which is thrilling. Other than that, I'm still figuring it out. These types of things, you're always just learning and learning and learning. And there's no blueprint to how you build these types of things.
Hmm.
There's structures, there's standards of like, certain investors are going to expect XYZ, but other investors might want something else. And so
Hmm.
it's really just being prepared across the board, knowing how you talk about it, knowing your numbers, knowing like being fully educated in the full picture of what you're offering these investors. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely. And so for other companies and founders, when will be so for you, when will be the right time for you, but also when do you think that you can give advice like when will the time be to start fundraising versus bootstrapping? Like how do you know when that time comes?
You'll just know. There's really not a good way to explain that. It kind of I think for me personally, it all just kind of came to a head of I need support, I need extra skills, and I need more resources because
Hmm.
I've kind of hit a wall, like a limited wall of what I can do with the resources I currently have.
Right.
Um, and so that was my sign of like, I have enough traction, I have enough to get a little bit of investors
Hmm.
to push this forward. But like I said, there's really no clear blueprint on understanding that. I think it's just as the founder and intuitive, like it's time.
Yeah.
Um, and just making sure you have everything kind of set and ready. And of course, like there's certain principles that you can follow, making sure you have that traction. Everybody is going to look at the traction because if you just have it on a piece of paper and it's
Hmm.
just a vision, it's unlikely that you'll get investors. But then again, we've seen it happen.
Right.
So like that's why I said it's so tough to say an exact point that you can look for, but just as a founder, trust yourself. And when you feel like it's time, just go for it.
Yeah, I always see pretty often it's sort of that combo of like growing pains and proof. And you
Yes.
have the proof and you have the pain. It's time. It's time
Yes.
to start not sleeping at night and
Yeah.
working very hard.
Oh, we're already doing that. We're way past
Too
that phase.
late. Too late. Well, looking forward to hearing some news from you down the road someday. So that'll be a fun time, I'm sure.
Definitely.
So, lessons and advice for listeners. What has been the biggest lesson you've learned so far as a first time founder building a tech company?
Entrepreneurship is 50% building a great business and 50%, can I swear?
Yeah.
And 50% a mind fuck. It's a mind game. It's such a mental game between all of the different things that you have to do and all the different hats you have to wear. And so obviously you need to have a sustainable, economically feasible business that people actually want and need. But
Hmm.
on the opposite side of that, there's so like this entire journey is literally just like playing the game in my head of am I right? Am I wrong? Who do I trust? What do I do? Trying to
Hmm.
figure out all these different things. And it's such a journey of personal growth. Like who I am now is not at all who I was 10 years ago, and
Yeah.
in that in between of this decade long journey trying to build this solution, in the middle there, life kind of handed it to me. Like I was like in a car accident. I was fired. I was dealing with a lot of health issues. And it was in one of those moments where I really knew I couldn't move the business forward. I had literally nothing to give. And so I had to reflect. And I started to realize like who I am at that moment. I was not the type of founder to be building an industry shifting solution. I had a lot of work to do on myself, my confidence,
Hmm.
my who I am and what I bring to the table. And so it's those mind I hate to call them tricks, but your mind does trick you. And it's kind of growing that resilience, growing that mental stamina to be able to handle everything that entrepreneurship throws at you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And some of the like biggest companies out there and most successful entrepreneurs, I feel like there's a common thread and the story is like you were down on your luck and in that deep dark space. So I think that's just like inspirational for listeners. It's like if it feels like nothing's working out and you're in this like dark spot. Like it's always darkest just before the light. Like it's coming. And so I just think it's like a very inspirational story.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I think a lot of founders do. You kind of have to hit that point because it really makes you build a lot more like true, for lack of a
Yeah.
better word.
Yeah.
True to yourself, true to the core
Hmm.
of the business, and just growing sustainably.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you could go back, what has this been, a decade long journey for you now? If you could go back to day one of building this vision, building Olive, what would you do differently? Is there anything?
No, there's nothing I
Love
would do
it.
differently. I mean, of course, there's things that I wish would have happened, but
Hmm.
everything is a lesson in itself. And
Hmm.
like I said, I wasn't the founder at the time to build an industry shifting solution. I feel like I had to have all those different things happen to me and all of those different failures because it taught me so much more than I ever would have learned had I taken a different approach or had I gone into corporate, to be
Hmm.
completely honest.
Yeah.
I was forced to learn so many different lessons that a lot of people have to learn over 20, 30, 40 years of their careers.
Hmm.
So, no, there's really nothing I would change.
I love
Everything
it.
happens for a reason.
No regrets.
No regrets.
No regrets. So, if any of my listeners are inspired by your story, have something similar, want to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so my handle on everything is Olivia Suchko. My handle for everything for Olive is Shop Olive Co. And don't hesitate to reach out. Let me know what you thought, and I'm happy to support.
Wonderful. I will get all the links in the bio below on my website, so you can at least find those all there pretty easily. But Olivia, it's been so good connecting with you today, as always. Thanks for coming on.
You too. Thanks so much for having me.